Hey everyone, welcome back to the It's a Mind Game podcast. My name is Jade, and today I'm absolutely delighted to have a wonderful lady joining us. Her name is Beth, and she is one of our HA community members. So, if you don't know a whole lot about the HA community, that is something that Claudia, or Nourished by Claudia on Instagram, and I hold with a bunch of wonderful women who are looking to recover their period, and it's a mixture of one-on-one and group sessions. But now that we got that stuff out of the way, Beth, welcome.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
We're so excited to have you here because it's actually been a little while since we've shared a HA recovery journey on the podcast. And for the most part, they tend to be the most inspiring stories to help ladies sort of progress through and keep putting one foot forward until they get to their destination. Do you want to start by giving us a little bit of insight on how it is that HA popped up for you in the first place?
Yeah, so probably about 3.5 years ago, I came off the pill because I wanted to try natural contraception methods. And I was just, curious about natural options. So at this time when I came off the pill, I was at the time I thought it was quite healthy, but obviously looking back, I was quite slim, low BMI. So I came off the pill, and then probably about 8 months after coming off the pill, I was like, okay, this is not normal. I've still not got a period back. I sort of was seeing doctors, and they were like, oh, it just takes a little bit of time. Don't worry, it's fine. So no one really flagged up to me that there was anything concerning, because I'd been on the pill for probably maybe 10 years. So I first was put on the pill because when I started my menstrual cycles, I was quite heavy, and I was losing a lot of blood, so I was quite anemic. So my cycles never really got a chance to properly regulate. So yeah, I came off the pill, and then I waited about 8 months, and then I was like, okay, something's not right. And then I just carried on. I thought it'll just eventually come back. And then in between all of that, it was COVID, and I was waiting for referrals to gynecology, and the waits were just crazy for those. So I didn't really understand the importance of my period at that point. I just thought, okay, it's fine. It's not causing me any issues. I'm not having a monthly bleed. That's okay. So I think there's a real misunderstanding at this point of all the other good things about a period and a menstrual cycle. So then I kind of the thing that changed in terms of my eating and also wanting to put on a bit of weight was I actually had an accident where I fell down an escalator. And that was kind of the turning point in all of my eating, my exercise, my rushing about and things like that, because this particular day I'd been told to by my mum was get a taxi. I was traveling back from Scotland to London, and she was get a taxi, don't carry a suitcase down the escalators and things like that. And I was really I'd been on the train all day, and at this point I was really struggling. I was I need to do some steps. I had it in my mind that I had to do some steps because I'd been sat still all day on the train. So I did use the excuse that obviously the traffic was really bad, so I didn't want to get a taxi. But then I got on I walked a bit part way, and then I got on the tube, and then the tube was really busy and I was rushing around, and someone pressed the emergency stop on the escalator, and then I just fell and put my knee. But then this was a sign for me to stop, I need to slow down. This was something that was obviously telling me you can't carry on like this. So that was a big point. And then from then onwards, I stopped running. So obviously I had stitches in my knee, so I couldn't run anywhere. But this was like where I was like, okay, like maybe running's not good for me anyway. Like maybe I had it in my mind that I needed to eat more in order to heal my knee quicker. But part of me was like thinking this, but the other part of me was like, oh, if it heals quicker, then I can just get back into doing all my exercise again. So it was kind of like, I was semi there. Like I was like, okay, I want to eat more. I want to gain weight. I want to be healthier. But I was still having these thoughts in the back of my mind, like, but I still need to do all this exercise. So this was like a pivotal like turning point in terms of I'm going to stop running and I might need to put on a bit more weight. But I didn't click the two with the period at this point. Like I didn't really think about it like that. I was just like, obviously something has to change, because I was like tired all the time as well. So then I don't really know what happened after that. Maybe I was trying to eat more, but I was still doing a lot of exercise, and like I was still walking like 25,000 steps a day or something like that. And that was like every single day.
And was that when you had the stitches in your knee still, or was that once it had healed?
I was still walking with the stitches in my knee.
Yeah,
so
and how did you feel when you couldn't run? Because obviously like you had a physiological reason why you couldn't run because of the stitches, but you're kind of, as this is all happening, you're starting to get that awareness that there's like an energy shift in the I do it because I love it versus I do it because I have to do it. Obviously there was still that emphasis to get the steps in, because you were just saying you hit 25,000 regardless of the injury. But how did you feel knowing that you couldn't go for a run of a morning?
To be honest, I felt relieved. And it was so weird because like I thought that I loved running and I enjoyed it, but I was actually like relieved, but I was still like, okay, I can still do this, and I can still I can still do something. I can still like I could still go like and do my walking, and I could still do like other forms of things at home. Like I used to do like home workouts, and I just like amended them slightly. But yeah, I was actually quite relieved. And then I don't know like why I just didn't return to it. I was just like, obviously like realized that I used to weigh myself every day, and I was like, oh, my weight stayed the same, so I don't need to run to maintain my weight. So at this point it was very much like, how can I maintain my weight or stay as slim as possible? So yeah, like I don't know, like going back to then like the cycle recovery, then I probably only started really taking it seriously when I was eating more at this point, but the amount of activity I was doing was just way above like what I was just obviously burning a lot more than what I was actually eating.
So what's an example of the activity you're doing? You said the 25,000 steps, but what else was there?
There was like HIIT workouts. So I used to do like home HIIT workouts. When my knee had healed, like I used to do a lot of spinning, just very intense like cardio stuff, and a lot of like jumping, a lot of like I don't know, like running on the spot, like all these, everything, like body combat, like everything was very like high intensity cardio training. There was not really any like let up on that, and I was probably doing it like 6 days a week.
Yeah,
so it was pretty intense at that time, as well as the steps. So like I'd do a workout in the morning, and I'd still like continue to make sure that I'd done like 20,000 or more steps a day, which was like, my body just felt like worn out all the time, and exhausted. And then so then I like moved back. I moved to Scotland. Like I started a new life with my partner, and then I think from then like I started to take like the like recovery in my weight and weight gain a bit more seriously. So like it was really cold when I moved, so I couldn't like do as many steps as what I was doing in London. And then I just started to like do a bit more reading around like HA, because I kind of like had a bit of an awareness of it, but because doctors had said, oh, you've got cysts on your ovaries, it's polycystic ovary syndrome. And then obviously and then like once I'd done my reading, I knew that it wasn't that, because I didn't really have any symptoms other than the cysts on my ovaries and the lack of periods. So yeah, that was when like I started doing some more research. I think maybe it was like then about, I think I was 9 months of living in Scotland, I got a bleed. And this was like a few months before I joined the community. So at this point I thought like, great, I'm recovered. Like I was like jumping with joy. Like I can remember like the feeling of like being so happy. But then if I'm reflecting back, like I wasn't in the same mindset that I am now. So then after that, like it didn't come back again. And I waited months and months and it just never came. So then that's when I joined like the HA community.
And what happened behaviorally or cognitively after that first bleed? Because it's absolutely common for the first couple of cycles to be all over the shop in regards to duration and, you know, how many days you bleed for and other PMS sort of symptoms. But you've had this one and then it completely went MIA again. Did some part of you get this sort of like, I did it, that's it, the journey's done, I'm going to go and do all this stuff that's really fun again, even if it's kind of, I'm not sure if it's fun because I haven't done it in a little while and that was okay too. What happened, and I guess what was your exercise and food like around about the time you got that first bleed, and then what did it shift to after you had the first bleed?
So I think I'd gone down to maybe like, I was still doing like 4 or 5 sessions a week, but I just started weight training. So I didn't weight train before this. So around the time I got the bleed, I'd started weight training. So, but then I was doing, 4 or 5 times. But then after I'd got the bleed, it was like sort of warmer weather, it was hotter, I found that I was doing more steps, and then I was also like doing like double workouts. Like there was a couple of days where I would like, just because it was warm and I wanted to do like a rooftop class or something like that, I then decided like I'm gonna do like, it was like I couldn't start my day without doing a workout, but then I still wanted to go to the rooftop class in the evening. So it was like I couldn't wait to work out. I couldn't wait like till the evening to do the workout. Like it had to be before then. So like it was still quite obsessive at this time. Like and then I think like I cut back on like my food as well. So maybe like reducing a snack again, and not really like not really like religiously sticking to like what I'd built up.
Sure. And when your period didn't show up like a month later, 2 months later, were you super worried about it? Were you kind of like, oh, everything will be okay? Or you sort of had an inkling like you're going back to that past self that doesn't get a period and it caused some concern?
I think like the first couple of months I was like, oh, it's okay, like it'll just take time. And then like I got really fearful after that. I was like, because obviously I kept reading about like the negative impacts of not having a period, and I got like really fearful and I was like, okay, I need to do something. And then like it was to the point where like when I was reading about it, I was like, I don't want to do all of this cardio, like I'm gonna cut down even more. And it was just all the things like that. And then I felt like it was as well, I was blaming like my job for everything, like for being part of the reason for not having a period, which I think it did play a massive factor in why I was like missing a period as well as the exercise. But I was just generally quite stressed and quite anxious. So I think that's when like I joined like the HA community, and I also felt very like alone, like because everyone that I was speaking to about it would just say, oh, like what you're worrying about. Like even my uncle, who's like, he's a doctor, he's a skin specialist, but he doesn't really know much about like menstrual health. He just say, oh, it's great, like it's great that you've not got one, like women hate. And it was really like I was like, no, this is not right. So I think at this point there was a lot of fear going on, and like even like obviously I'm really close with my mum, and she was just like, oh, don't worry, it'll settle down, like just trying to reassure me. But then when we realized that like it wasn't, then she was like what can you do, like is there anything available to you? And I think that's when I'd found like Nourished by Claudia. Like I'd already found her when I got the first initial period, but then I was like, oh, I don't need it now.
I'm okay now.
Yeah. So then I reverted back, and then that's when I reached out.
When you were researching HA, you said that there was a couple of things that kind of really stood out to you about the negative effects of not having a cycle. Because as you said, it's really common to have a missing cycle, and whether it be outside influences going, yeah, we got nothing to worry about, like how convenient, you save money and it's, you know, it's not messy and da. And then on a personal level, it can be convenient to not get your period. Like you don't need to worry about having things with you, or well, I know for me anyway, because I thought your cycle was this huge mystery of never knowing when it's going to show up or how heavy it's going to be. It was like, oh gosh, who needs that kind of negativity in their life? Little did I know it can actually be an incredibly predictable process if you've got the right tools in place. But what was it for you that you read that you were particularly like, whoa, like I have to fix this?
It was mainly like the fear that like obviously when I'm ready to have children, that felt like in the place that I was, like I wouldn't be able to because I've not got a healthy cycle. I was like just really fearful that like I'm going to be a person who can't have children, and like I just felt devastated because I was like, that's something that I've always wanted. Like I know I don't want it immediately, but like I was really like looking into the future and thinking like, what if I can't have children? And it was also like my bone health, like my brain, like all of those things. Like I was like, wow, like I think that's why like I have brain fog, or like I can't concentrate, or like those things really stood out to me as well, because I've always liked to study, and I've always liked to like career progress and things like that. And I was like, maybe my concentration isn't there anymore, and like just got worried about those things as well.
Sure. And yeah, because it's quite the rabbit hole once you start researching the side effects of HA, because it's definitely not just a missing period. Like it's this huge puzzle. And I think that kind of creates some of the intrigue in having a cycle full stop, because you go from thinking like it's just a period to being like, oh my goodness, this is actually a critical point in so many different processes of my body, and I had no idea. And even when you go and see other medical professionals, they don't know, right? Because otherwise they would have been like, oh, 8 months since you've been off the pill, that's a decent amount of time, we want to be looking at that. Or you mentioned your uncle as well, and even though obviously skin is his specialty, there's still an element of physiology and biology that he would have known. And definitely not having a stab at your uncle in any way, shape or form. Like it happens across the board. Even gynecologists, my goodness, can sometimes be like, oh, it'll come. And you go, what? Like you're meant to be the advocate for this. Like you should want to hear now. But hopefully all of these stories coming through and all the education coming through is going to be that big shift in education and knowledge around it. When you first spoke with Claudia, what is it that made you sort of go, oh, you know what, I definitely need some help. Like I'm sick of doing this by myself, or I don't want to anymore.
I think it was just the thought that like, I don't know, like I didn't have to be a trooper, like I didn't have to like try and battle everything on my own, because I felt like I was listening to all of these this advice and people saying it's okay, and I just felt like I can't listen to this anymore. Like I just need other people who are going through what I'm going through. And I think it was just like knowing that there was someone there who understood like what I was going through, then I think that made me feel like, okay, this is a positive step. And I was like, obviously I thought I'd challenged some things, but I was like, I definitely knew that there was more work that could be done. So the idea of like being able to have support around me to do that work rather than doing it on my own.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were really motivated in regards to coming to group calls, doing one-on-ones, and kind of, well, not even kind of prioritizing your health. You absolutely were prioritizing your health in order to get the desired outcome. And we even had some discussions about training in between, because you were quite adamant to keep weights training 3 to 4 times per week because you knew your body was going to be okay with that. And that is obviously a really sticky point for a lot of women when it comes to training, because some have to go all in. That's just how it works for them, still walking, doing yoga, whatever else. And then others can continue training and their body is compliant, happy to do that. What was it particularly that you knew that your body was okay with training? Because when we had that conversation, it was quite unique in the way that you didn't come from a place where you were being stubborn, like, no, I have to train. It wasn't that at all. You're like, no, I know my body can handle it. But it seemed really like, it's a conversation I think about quite often, because you seemed so intuitive about it. Like, it wasn't an emotional thing. And there's a very big difference between someone kind of having a knowing, if you want to look at it from a spiritual perspective, and someone wanting the outcome to occur in the way they want it to occur, i.e. it has to come while training. What is it that made you just have the confidence of going, no, my body's okay with this?
I think like part of, like, obviously I tried to be like confident, but I think sometimes there were doubts. Like, I mean, even when like my personal trainer would be like, oh, she once put me through like a functional session, and I was like, I can't do that. Like, my heart rate felt so high. I was like, this is not what I want. So like, I think at that point I kind of like lost it a little bit. Like, there was times where I was like, I really questioned what I was doing. But then the other times I was like, okay, like, I feel stronger. I feel like I had like a lot of upper back pain. I felt quite weak before strength training. And then when I started strength training, I was like, I hardly get back pain anymore at all. There was lots of like parts of my body where I was like, okay, like, I just feel like so much better, so much more energized. Whereas like when I did all the cardio, I was like absolutely rinsed of energy. Like, I'd be all the time, I'd be hangry, like, and then once I started weight training, I just found like, and I knew that I wasn't going with the intention of losing weight or like particularly changing my body. So when I went and got a personal trainer, I was like, I don't want to change my body. Like, I'm not too bothered about like aesthetics. I just want to get stronger, and like, I just want to feel like strong and like able to do things like carry the shopping. Because I really struggled with that before. Like, I struggled with my back. So I think it was that, like, knowing that, okay, like, this has improved my body for the better. And it was funny because like when I got that first period, I'd like the one that didn't come back again, I'd only just started like weight training then. So I was like, it was almost like my body like couldn't cope with it at that time. But I think the nutrition side played a big part of it, because I probably wasn't eating enough at that first initial time to be able to fuel like that what my body was doing. So I think that's the real difference, like having the confidence that you're like fueling around the training properly. So like eating before, not training fasted, like all of those things made me feel a bit more confident.
Sure. And how did you go with the step count side of things? Do you still keep a step count? Is it something you're working on? Did you scrap the watch? Where are we at with the step?
I scrapped that like before I moved to Glasgow, like before I moved to Scotland. So that was kind of like, I kind of knew though, like an hour and a half's walking a day is like okay. But then that really like reduced. Like, it used to be to like, even more recently, I'd say it's got even better, but it used to be like, even before a long car journey, I'd be like, oh my God, I need to go and get some steps before I get in the car, because I'm going to be in the car for X amount of hours. So even though I like ditched the watch a long time ago, like I still probably had an awareness of like how many like steps would be achieved in like X amount of time. But now it's really more like going with how I feel. Like I love walking, like I love going out, I love going out in nature. Like I struggle to like be cooped up in the house all day. That's the main reason like why I walk now, is to not be in the house all day. But I think the obsessive, like I have to hit an hour and a half of walking, or like I have to walk X amount of times a day, has definitely like disappeared.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because the step count can be quite difficult for many women to get rid of, especially because there's the, to go for a walk every day, but there's a difference between going for like a leisurely walk every day and forcing yourself to hit sort of 20k steps and things like that. Because as you said, you feel exhausted. You're not ending the day feeling like, oh, that was great. Like I feel invigorated from that movement. It's like, oh gosh, I had to do it, and now I feel really tired. And that's so far from what you're describing with your exercise routine at the moment, which is like, I feel strong, I feel, energetic, I feel healthy. Like it just feels like everything's in check, versus just being completely exhausted and run down all of the time. When you went through the body changes, because obviously that's some of the hardest elements of HA, we all get this like elephantitis syndrome of, if I don't make any changes, I'm going to wake up tomorrow, I'm going to be huge. Or if I'm not huge tomorrow, I'm going to be absolutely huge next week, next month. Like, and it's a very sincere emotion, right? It's, if you told a friend, they could be like, oh my gosh, you're being silly. Like, don't worry about it. But when you're experiencing it, it's a very strong, authentic thing. Like you're severely concerned that this is going to happen. When you look at your fear of weight gain back when you perhaps first started the journey, and that could be way, way back, like even when you hurt your knee, versus how you feel about your body now, did your body actually do the things you were terrified of it doing? Or were you sort of like, there's still, let's say, management of body changes, because it still is something that we all need to work on, but it wasn't as extreme as how we anticipate it's going to be?
Yeah, so like it took me like during the first like few years of trying to gain weight, like before I started taking period recovery, seriously, it took me like ages to gain like anything, because like I was still heavily active. I'd say the biggest changes have occurred for me over the last 6 months, like, and I think that's when I really started like eating more around my workouts and trying to like focus more on that. And I think the body image thing has probably hit me harder in the last 6 months than it did in like the initial like sort of journey that I was on, because I do think like I was in like quasi recovery, like I wasn't truly like I wasn't truly committing to it at that time. I definitely feel like it's still something that I'm like working on, because a few weeks ago, like I tried on like all my clothes, like my denim, like all my summer skirts, and like absolutely nothing fit me. And I was like, how did this happen? And I was like, I mean, a year ago they still fit me, but I was like, I know how it happened. Like obviously I've had like 2 periods now, and it's like I know that was my goal. So like I think it was just quite emotional for like a day or two around that, where I was like, oh, like what happened? Why can't I fit in them anymore? And then I just felt like I needed like a lot of reassurance around that time. Like, I mean, like even my sister, like I don't know, like for her to say, oh, like, well, you don't want to fit in them anymore, like you should bin them or sell them or get rid of them, because that's not like, you weren't a healthy body. So like I needed someone like external to like tell me that. But now like I've bagged them up and I've kind of like put them on like a Vinted to sell. Like I'm feeling more like productive about it. I'm like, I've put them in a bag and like they're gonna go.
It's like closure.
Yeah, it is for me. And then like I've like bought a few new things, like stuff that I feel confident in. And like it wasn't like, it's not like I don't feel like unhappy in my body. It's just the reminder when you put something on and
It's
your
like
brain,
startling.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was really startling, because I thought, like, last year when I got the period on its own, like, I thought I'd got away with it. Like, in my mind, I've not had to gain much weight, so like I've got away with it. But like, I think that was obviously just my brain playing tricks on me, because in the grand scheme of things, like, if we talk about the elephantitis syndrome, like, I've not changed into an elephant over that time. Your brain is like, oh my God, what have you done? But it definitely only lasted like a couple of days, where it might have lasted a lot longer in like previous years. Like, even just like going on holiday and jumping on the scales when you get back and you're like, oh, like, I've gained all this weight. Like, that used to really hit me hard. But now it's like, it's an intentional thing. Like, these are the goals that I set out. Like, I wanted to get my period back. I wanted to be healthy. So like, there was intention in like what's happened here.
I guess it's got to be some form of sacrifice. We can't sort of have it all and go, well, I want to keep the body and keep with all the routines and have my period back. And that's where it can kind of be tricky, because we actually think we want everything until we start living the other way. And I'd love to hear your opinion on this, because even though you've had body changes and they're nowhere near extreme as what you predicted they were going to be, they're just changes that you're like, oh, okay, like, there it is. Do the body changes seem worth it for the way that your life's changed in regards to having more time for yourself, being less stressed, being more calm and casual around food? Perhaps your relationships have improved, or, you know, you've even changed careers since this project since the program, and you're absolutely loving this new career. If you're looking at it from a sacrifice point of view, which sounds a bit dramatic, but do you feel like the change in body is worth it for everything else that's come alongside it?
Definitely, like 100%. And like, even now that I'm like in this new body that is more focused, because I'm fueling myself properly, and like, I'm not not restricting or anything like that. Like, even with my role as like a lecturer, I feel like I have more like time to listen to students. Like, I feel I'd have more energy to do like more study for myself, because in the past, like, I might have got through like studying, but I probably wasn't doing it to like my optimum ability. Like, I feel I have way more brain energy, concentration, definitely like worth it, because even like relationships with my partner, like, I think when I used to be like hungry all the time, and like, he even said like to me, I remember when like we used to go out for breakfast, and then you'd like say you didn't want lunch, and I was like, what's going on here? Like, this is what he'd said. He was like, well, I still want lunch, why are you not having lunch, kind of thing. But it was like, in my mind at that time, I was like, oh, I've had a big breakfast, so I can't eat.
I can't. Yeah.
And it's like little things like that where like he picked up on that. So it was obviously something that he thought like, what's going on? Like, why aren't you eating? And things like that. So it's just a positive that I don't have to like feel like I'm restricting around him, and I'm happy for like other people to make me food, like to eat out spontaneously without like checking the menu before I go to make sure it's okay. Like, none of that has to happen now, and it's like saved a lot of energy that I can spend on positive things.
And we tend to always think, you know, people are going to judge us so much for these changes that we make in order to heal. But it's also important to remember how much our decision to heal positively benefits those around us that we care about most. Like, that eating example is a great one. Like, you went for breakfast and then your partner wanted to go for lunch, and you're like, no, 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 no. And it kind of changes the energy of the day, because he kind of knows that, well, of course you're hungry by now. Like, it's lunchtime, everyone has lunch. And even if you're not that hungry, like, I want to take you for lunch. Like, you're not going to let me take you for lunch. You can get like the tiniest thing, but just like join in with me. And we don't, when we're in it, we don't see that. We just see the like, oh my gosh, I had a big breakfast, shut down. And that's all it is. It's very chaotic. And then you can look back and go, oh, wow, you know, I can see how it's actually a lot more fun for my partner now that I've done some of this work, because now we can go for breakfast, we can go for lunch, we can even go out for dinner if we want to. And it might not be every single day, but if we're having something special go on, I can actually immerse myself in it and really be with him on that day, versus sort of tapping in for a little bit and then being like, I'm physically with you and mentally I've completely checked out because I've met my quota for the day.
Yeah. So it's a great, it is like a crazy feeling, but it is just like 100% worth it.
And when you think about the HA community, because you said obviously you enjoyed the idea that other women are sort of going through what you're going through and you didn't feel so isolated. What was your favorite thing about being in the community? Would that have been it, or was it something else?
I think, like just having people around you, and then also like, I don't know, it's like accountability, even though it's like not obviously like religious, like not everyone has to like stick to whatever you've set out, but like it is accountability, and like you've got other people around you who are like focusing on different things, and like they can give you some ideas on what you can focus on. So I really just think like the support and like having others around you who are focusing and ideas as well, like ideas of challenges that you can do. And obviously like support from you and Claudia as well, like that was a big part of it.
And did you have any sort of like aha moments with either Claudia or I that really stand out to you when you look back? Because I feel like for the most part, there's a lot of information that comes through, whether it be on eating behaviors, training, body image, building confidence, relationship dynamics. Like there's a whole umbrella of things that fall under there. But there tends to be just like one or two things where you just go, oh, I left that call, or I left that conversation, or I've read that article and it just really clicked for me. Did you have any of those moments?
I would say there were two that stood out for me most. Were like I think there was like one time where Claudia was like, oh, like, do you want to take a break from recovery? And I was like, what do you mean take a break from recovery? Because in my mind I felt like I'd like failed if I like stepped out, because I'd not got my period back at that point. And then I realized that like what she was saying to me is like, recovery was very much like every day in my life, like it was very much the forefront of my mind. Like I have to eat every 2 to 3 hours. If I don't do that, then I've not met what I should be doing. And like it was very much like consuming me at one point. And then I realized that what she meant was like, you don't have to like think about it all the time, like just take a step back and like just start living your life. And like I think that really like resonated with me, because she obviously wasn't saying like leave, like she was just like sort of bringing it back to like not every day has to be like focused around like I need to recover. And I think that helped me because it took away some of the pressure. So that's one. And then the other one, I think like more recently like resonated with me when I was waiting for period 2, and then remember you saying that like the reason why you're experiencing like all of these body dysmorphic thoughts is because it's okay when like there's something there, like your period, it's okay when it's there, but then when it's not, like you start second guessing everything. And I think like as soon as I realized that that's what I was doing, then I was like, okay, let's take a step back and like it'll come. It's my second period isn't here yet, so it was like changing the narrative. So like thinking it's not here yet, but I know that it's coming, and like these thoughts that I'm having about my body image are only like temporary. So two things.
That's it. And that's probably handy for some of the other ladies. So what was explained in that scenario was Beth was waiting for a second period to arrive, and this can happen with so many of us. Like I know I definitely went through it as well, and plenty of ladies in the community too. And it's almost like we've still rehearsed this dialogue of negative body image and negative self-talk a lot more than we've rehearsed our positive version of ourselves or our future self-projection. So we go from having a period of being like, that's it, I've nailed it, I'm on top of the world, like everything was worth it, everything I did was worth it, and that's this real high, to where's my period, like it's day 30, it's day 25, it's day 28, whatever it might be. And then that little door just like creeps open, and that negative self-talk is like, hey, remember me? Because you're feeling a little bit vulnerable. You're starting to go, well, hang on, but I did everything the same this week, and why isn't it here? Or, well, did I do everything the same? Did I train a little bit too much? Did I change my eating? Or was I too stressed? Did I get sick? And you start overdoing it. And then those vulnerabilities kick in. So if that is happening to you, or if you've experienced it, it's really important to realize that you're kind of feeling unsettled or unnerved just because of the unpredictability of the situation. But as Beth said, if you can just remain calm and have faith that your body's doing all that it can to bring on the next period, then those emotions will generally start to simmer down. And then obviously once your period comes, that's the ultimate, like, oh gosh, what was I even worried about? Like it just, even if there was 2 or 3% left, it just gets completely deleted. And it's like, is that what happened when you got your second one?
Yeah, like I was
yeah,
just
so it's like emotions are at a 10, and then they might drop to maybe a 2, but they're kind of there, and the bleed happens, and it's like, be gone.
Yeah. And like, even just, I don't know, like I was like, in my mind, I was like, I don't think my luteal phase was optimum, but I was like, right now, I don't care. Like it's here, it's a work in progress. Like it's just settling itself. So I thought that, yeah, like I was going to give myself a bit of a hard time about it, but I didn't. I was just like, it's here. That's the main thing. Like there's time. So yeah.
Absolutely. And as you commented on the luteal phase as well, because that's another area of question and concern that pops up, is also trying to almost look at your period as someone learning to ride a bike, right? The first 3 periods in particular, they're going to be a bit shaky. You might still need your training wheels on, you might fall off, you might be a bit wobbly. And what I mean by that is your body's still trying to find its rhythm. So if your luteal phase is a little bit shorter, a little bit longer, your period was 3 days versus 5 days, it's all a part of your body just trying to settle into itself again. And rather than being like letting that sort of like perfectionist self kick in and be like, this is exactly what it should be, instead showing our body some compassion and being like, hey, I'm so proud of you for trying to troubleshoot this. Like, this is good. Mm-hmm. And whatever numbers or details I get from this cycle, it's going to help me then determine what my behaviors are for the next month, right? Because it is a nice little ticker as to ways that we can improve. But that being said, we're 2 cycles in. Beth is doing absolutely fabulous. And we are so, so proud of her and absolutely love having her contribution to the community as well, because you also have wonderful things to share and insights with us. Is there any last thoughts that you might want to share with anyone listening on recovery in regards to stick at it, don't do it, anything at all?
I think like definitely stick at it, because like I wasn't like a short recovery time. I was 6 months from when I joined the community. And I think it's just like really like putting faith in your body, but not letting it like consume your everyday thoughts. Because I think as soon as I like stepped away a little bit and like just started living a little bit more, but still sticking with like my non-negotiables, like making sure I had my snacks, sticking with like ways that nourish my body, like movement, it definitely felt a lot easier then. But yeah, I would just say like it's honestly one of like the proudest moments of my life when I got it back, and like I've got to, because it's not something that you can like everything else in my life like I've been able to control, or like for example like doing doing my masters, like I've had like work, it's work, but you're putting the trust in your body, so it's very different to like something that you do externally.
It's like winning a relationship over.
Yeah, so I say it's like one of the hardest things I've ever done, but one of like the things that's given me like the most pride. So yeah, let's say stick at it.
That's beautiful. Well, keep feeling pride with every single cycle it comes, because it's something that should be celebrated. Beth, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and thank you so much for sharing with everybody your journey and how you got from where you were to where you are now. If anyone wants to have a chat with you and sort of have a debrief on HA, where might they be able to find you?
You can just find me on Instagram, so it's at Beth Hargreaves. So yeah, you'll be able to chat to me on there and ask away any questions that you might have.
Wonderful. I'll pop those details in the show notes in case anyone wants to reach out and have a chat with Beth. And if you're interested in the HA community, you can always reach out to myself or Claudia, and we would love to speak with you. But for now, Beth, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. And as for my listeners, thanks so much for being here today, and we will see you in the next one.
Thank you. Bye.